have drawn comparisons between Mayfield and Johnny Manziel. Mayfield spoke about it. Take a listen.
We're two completely different people. I've always had love for the game. I've always been a team-oriented guy. Not saying that Johnny wasn't, but I quickly earned the respect of my teammates because of how I worked. You know, I wasn't given the natural talent that Johnny had, and because he's a talent, and there's a reason he got taken in the first round. Amazing player, and so we're just not the same mentally. Just wired differently. I didn't want to be portrayed as the villain or somebody like that. I feel like I make a lot of people happy. I do good things within my community. And not try to say those cover up any mistakes that I've made, but there's always a learning curve when you're growing up.
CC, is it fair to compare Mayfield to Manziel?
It's not fair to compare them when you know that a player's career was altered because him not being able to handle socially being in the NFL. And it's not fair to compare someone that we consider right now to be a bust. Like, we know the end story. Like, we know that it's failed for the most part. He's trying to make a comeback, playing in the spring league and whatnot. But right now, as we stand on this day, like, he was a bust as a NFL quarterback. So, no, it's not fair to say that a guy, a potential first-round pick, you're comparing him to a guy that we know the results is a bust. And there's two big differences. When you show Johnny Manziel's highlights of him being at Texas A&M, most of those highlights have to do with him ad-libbing and running around in the pocket. The other thing I don't believe it's fair to compare him to is because Johnny Manziel came out last week and let us know that he's been diagnosed with being bipolar. So now you have a quarterback who throws on schedule to a quarterback who doesn't throw on schedule, and a quarterback that we know that was just diagnosed with having bipolar. Now, if he had been diagnosed with bipolar before the draft, maybe we might do some other things to be able to help him out. But we were not equipped because we did not know. We didn't find out until here recently. So, no, I don't think that's fair, because if you look at Baker, what he's done, interceptions, touchdown ratio to interceptions is amazing. 119 touchdowns in 3 seasons with only 21 INTs as much as they threw the ball. 3 times in the top 5 for the Heisman Trophy. So as a college football player, he is far more accomplished than Johnny Manziel, and I believe it's more transferable, even though we've seen quarterbacks in the system, offense, struggle to transfer to the NFL.
I don't think it's fair, but I think a lot of the stuff we do pre-draft is unfair. You mentioned it's not fair to compare guys to someone we know is a bust, but I hear guys say, oh, is he going to be the next Jamarcus Russell? All the time. Is he going to be the next? We do hear this.
Well, you have to draw a comparison because it's easier for football fans. They think they know a lot of football, but they really don't know as much. So what we try to do is attach their eye to something that they're familiar with. So a guy who's a body type or a style like, you try to grab that and say, this is a guy who had a frame like or played a style like this person. So as fans, it's easier to attach what the guy's skill level is transferring to the next level.
Right. As far as on the field, I don't see a lot of comparisons between Manziel and Baker Mayfield. The quarterback where he's more similar, even though not the exact same, on the field is Lamar Jackson. Now, I think Lamar throws a better deep ball. I think Lamar's a better runner than Johnny was. Johnny maybe was a better improviser, but they are more stylistically similar, even if Lamar is taller. But off the field, again, we have to remember Johnny off the field in college didn't have nearly as many things swirling around him as he did once he was a pro.
I mean, what has Baker had around him besides being arrested by the cop?
Well, I mean, that's a big yada yada.
No,
but the Johnny only got arrested once in college.
I know. I said, what did Baker have off the field besides the time he got arrested?
Well, the crotch grab in the...
That was on the field.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. When I say off the field, I mean unrelated to actual...
What guy would we grade down in college? In a football game, he grabs his crotch.
Oh, I think most quarterbacks. Most quarterbacks would get criticized for that, especially...
I'm talking about downgrading him. Forget criticizing him. Downgrading him as far as his potential in the league.
Right. I think that because it came after the arrest, I think a lot of GMs and scouts, and I think it'd be totally fair, would say, hey, college kid gets arrested, runs from the cops. It's stupid. You shouldn't have done it. But a lot of us had a run-in in college. But after that, when you play that position, we expect you to be on your very best behavior. Your margin of error for the extracurricular things does not exist. And to do that against, by the way...
I just don't apply to that theory. Like, I don't have a quarterback in some huge vacuum that he can't run my team because he did football or athletic-related things that other players are doing.
And by the way, I happen to not mind what he did with the flag planting and the crotch grab. Like, I'm not the guy that is sitting here talking about character issues, but the scouts and the GMs typically are. So when I see what Johnny did off the field in college, the people criticize Johnny for the money sign celebration. Like, that, I think those comparisons are fair. Now, Johnny's thing went really off the rails because of, as CC mentioned, the bipolar disorder and because of struggles with addiction. We have no reason to believe Baker's going to fall into any of those things. But as far as a player goes, the questions you have about Baker Mayfield are the conference he plays in and his height. The conference he plays in, I don't know what you can say about it. The height, what you can say is we have seen a few guys his height succeed, and there's something about how he throws that makes you think he has something in common with Drew Brees, who's his height,
he
Russell
has a
Wilson,
perfect
who's his
throwing
height.
motion, which is over the top. He doesn't bring the ball sidearm. So when you're short, you have no chance if you're sidearm because in the pocket, because typically your left tackle, he's going to be 6'7" to 6'5". All right, your right tackle is going to be 6'7" to 6'4". So you're going to have windows that you have to, because you're not going to be able to throw the ball over top of those guys. So if you drop the ball down sidearm, it would even mark you down. So if you're 6 foot, that's going to even make you shorter in the pocket.
And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so the throwing motion, you talk about the system and coming out of the Big 12, but what other qualities does he have that lead you to believe that he could thrive in the NFL?
He's an accurate passer. All right, he's a high achiever. He's also his body type. He has a great body, a lot like Russell Wilson. His width through his shoulders, the density for which his muscles are constructed. Like, you can tell he is a well put together football player compared to being a slightly built, as people talked about with Lamar Jackson, or even like Drew Brees was when he was in college. Drew has gotten a little bit thicker. He's still slightly built, but his artistry playing quarterback, he's able to overcome those things as far as height. I believe that Baker is going to be a star in the NFL also because of the intangibles. His leadership, he has the it factor. Now, what is that? You know it when you see it. Like, sometimes you can't put an adjective on it, but I believe Baker Mayfield, he has it.
So that last part, I think, is incredibly important. And I think sometimes it sounds cliche when we talk about these intangibles. Like, we try to grade intangibles when, by definition, intangibles are like things that are impossible to grade, impossible to name to. But for that position, leadership is, I think, half the game. I think leadership is as important as how tall you are. I think leadership is as important as almost any measurable aside from your overall accuracy. And we've talked about his accuracy. And Chris tells a great story about seeing Cam Newton when he was being recruited by Florida. And that even if people can criticize Cam's fundamentals or some parts of his game as a pro, that Cam was a natural leader when he was 18 years old. He had all the best players around him in the country, goes to this camp at Florida. They're all following him like he's the Pied Piper. A lot of those same characteristics Chris has seen in Baker Mayfield. I haven't been in those locker rooms, so I don't know who you gravitate towards to follow, but this is something where I do defer to Chris. Like, you talk to him at the Ohio State game, you talk to his coaches, and a lot of those things, the planting the flag, they weren't considered by his teammates, look at me. They were considered a rallying cry for the team, which is critically important for that position.
Yeah, the flag plant, they got mollywopped by Ohio State the year before in Norman. They got embarrassed. So coming back, a top 5 matchup, I mean, 2 historic universities. I think Oklahoma had been playing football 130 years. Ohio State been playing 124, 22 years. So they don't get together. The emotion of it, the huge win, he played amazing, which helped lead the momentum to him winning the Heisman Trophy. So I just believe the people around him, the people who really know him, some of the emotion of it, that stuff can be cleaned up, but his overall talent, his ability to be able to complete the ball, to be accurate, to watch his yards after the catch, because he throws the ball where the receiver, the ball speaks to him. He knows to either keep running or to stop and turn upfield. So those things I'm really, really excited to see, and I believe all those things are transferable to the NFL.
Is there anything on the field that gives you hesitation or that may hold him back?
I don't like running from the police. That was not a good day for him.
No, she said on the field.
On the field.
Does the one read stuff? The common knock on the Big 12.
This is what I'm concerned about. The Big 12, what can you say about them? They don't have a lot of defensive backs that are going to be playing in the NFL. So these quarterbacks who compile these huge numbers in that conference, it hadn't transferred over to success on Sundays.
And CC, what do we say about if you're going to listen? Don't run from the cops. But if you're going to run from the cops, you better get away, Baker. You got to show a little more foot speed. Gotta go.
Right. You gotta go.
You gotta be one stepping out.
That is it for us. First things
You guys got
back tomorrow morning at 6:30.
You gotta do like this.
You gotta go. Right there. Undisputed. Starts now.